don't know it, but K-12 students are falling into the honesty gap. There is a bill under consideration in the Florida Senate that removes the teeth of the state testing requirements for graduation, and Florida is not the only state working the refs, removing state testing requirements even as national test scores decline. In order to graduate from high school and earn a standard high school diploma, Florida students must pass a standardized English language arts assessment in 10th grade and pass a statewide algebra test or earn comparable scores on SAT or ACT exams. If the bill is signed into law, students won't have to pass either test to graduate. Florida would join Massachusetts, Wisconsin, Oklahoma, and Alaska in lowering the testing standards or graduation requirements of late. After the absolutely dismal National Assessment of Education Progress, NAEP, scores from 2024, which showed that a higher percentage of 8th graders scored below basic in reading than at any point in the test's 30 years history, you would think that states' education leaders would be putting serious time and effort into helping their students thrive. The NAEP is a congressionally mandated federal exam given to 4th graders and 8th graders every 2 years and 12th graders about every 4 years to track educational progress across the country. All of this is reminding me of something President Trump said in the spring of 2020 about the coronavirus. He says if we stop testing right now, we'd have very few cases, if any. If we stop testing American students, we'll have fewer bad headlines about how poorly they're doing. Unfortunately, Linda McMahon, the Education Secretary, agrees with President Trump's executive order that the Department of Education should go away, but she has not stopped there. As a consequence of the huge job cuts McMahon has enacted so far, she has hobbled the federal government's ability to gather statistics on student achievement, effective teaching practices, and student literacy. The Institute of Education Science, which gathers this data, is now left with fewer than 20 federal employees, down from more than 175 at the start of the second Trump administration, according to Jill Barchet at the Heshinger Report. Now, even the NAEP, which is considered the gold standard of national testing and whose data McMahon cited in her testimony before Congress to show how poorly American students are faring, may be at risk. The Department of Education abruptly canceled the long-term trend test of 17-year-olds just a week after saying its recent round of cuts would not impact the National Assessment of Educational Progress, Linda Jacobson of the 74 noted. Standardized testing is not perfect, and I'm sympathetic to the argument that it can hamper teacher autonomy in the classroom, but there is evidence that without standardized testing, parents have little awareness of their children's deficits, in part because of the grade inflation. And over the past few decades, test scores have gone down while grades have gone up. This issue, which predates the pandemic, is known as the honesty gap, quote unquote. In 2023, Tom Kane and Sean Reardon, professors of education at Harvard and Stanford respectively, wrote a guest essay based on their research called Parents Don't Understand How Far Behind Their Kids Are in School. I called Kane to see if, since he wrote that piece, anything had changed with student achievements or parental knowledge. And Kane mentioned the honesty gap and told me that when we spoke late last month, very few parents have detailed knowledge of exactly where in the syllabus their child is, but even fewer knew how that compares to where children would have been in 2019. He also said that standardized test scores are not just a stressful chore for students and teachers, they correlate the long-term success. According to a National Bureau of Economic Research working paper that Kane and others wrote, a standard deviation improvement in the birth cohort's 8th grade math achievement on the NAEP was associated with an 8% rise in income, as well as improved educational attainment and declines in teen motherhood, incarceration, and arrest rates. And furthermore, Kane and his co-authors have projected that if the recent declines in NAEP scores continue, they would represent a 1.6% decline in present value of lifetime earnings for the average K-12 student. But there are other more profound challenges when kids graduate from college without basic literacy and numeracy skills. College professors, even at elite schools, have been raising concerns about their students' lack of reading comprehension for the past few years. This is deeply unfair to American children who deserve to be equipped with critical thinking skills, especially since understanding what is true in the age of social media is even more challenging. It's not all hopeless. Some states and cities are succeeding, at least in reading. Many have written about the Mississippi Miracle, how one of the poorest states in the Union improved its reading scores. Louisiana has seen similar progress. Steubenville, Ohio, recently the subject of an American public media feature, has routinely scored in the top 10% or better of schools nationwide for third grade reading, sometimes scoring as high as the top 1%. Steubenville is a small, economically depressed Rust Belt city where lots of kids live in poverty. What all three of these bright spots have in common is that they are embracing the basics that we already know work well, identify struggling readers before third grade, and give them extra support. There are almost no bright spots in math. In Steubenville, this is the form of one-on-one tutoring in addition to the daily 90-minute reading class. According to American Public Media's Kane Martin, Carmela Guaglianone, and Emily Hanford, the tutors include staff, community volunteers, and local high school and college students. The system is also addressing chronic absenteeism by deploying a rapid response team to students who are not attending school regularly. It's not magic. If we no longer have reliable federal test scores to measure states against each other and see what's working, we won't even have these small wins. We won't know that they're happening in the first place. And this is by New York Times on DNYUZ. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Please support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.